Chapter 11. Carath Academy. Jian held Gian Chen's head in a loving way as she slowly walked forward. Third sister. This was only some playful sparring between kids, not something we should worry about. It's pointless to get angry. In the end, the two of them are just children after all. Right now, we should instead concentrate on healing Carath's wounds. At the words of Jian, despite still being quite mad, all Yufeng Han could do was fume silently. She was afraid that if she continued to nag everyone about the acts of such small children, her three sisters would begin to see her in a darker light. Jian walked up to where Changyang Ke reclined, closed her eyes, and brought her two hands over the boy's wounds. Her hands hovered there for a moment before letting off a faint white glow. At that moment, Jian Chen's eyes sparkled with interest. He could clearly sense that a special power was gradually gathering in his mother's hands, forming that faint white glow. Moreover, this type of special power was the exact same power that he was able to contain inside the ball he had made earlier. Gian Chen began to pay close attention to his mother's movements, and in doing so he suddenly realized that he was actually unsure if he was able to understand the very same method his mother was using to manipulate the energy. After all, he had discovered ages ago that this ability to integrate the strength of the world was complicated. The white glow in Jian's hands grew stronger and stronger, yet the light never hurt one's eyes. After a few deep breaths, she flicked her arms, and the milky white light left her hands and floated down to Changyang Ke's stomach, slowly merging with the wound there. The white bandages that were already there obstructed Gian Chen's view of what exactly the white ball of energy was doing and what changes were occurring. After completing her task, Jian let out a deep breath. Third sister, Changyang Ke is fine. His injuries should be non-existent now. A happy smile finally appeared on Yufeng Han's face. She thanked Jian briefly before quickly stepping over to Changyang Ke's bedside. She gave a concerned look towards her son and asked, "Carath, how are you feeling? Does your wound still hurt?" Changyang Ke raised his hand to rub at his stomach area and laughed before starting to tear at his bandages. "Mother, your son is all right now. It's very comfortable." After the bandages fell off, it was clear that the wound on Changyang Ke's stomach was nowhere to be seen. Only a small bloody scar remained, but other than that, the wound had ceased to exist. Upon seeing this, Jian Chen suddenly understood. This type of mysterious energy was the unique energy that belonged to radiant saints. Their energy had a special healing effect that could heal any injury, no matter how grave. Under the care of a radiant saint, any wound would be healed rapidly. Since his own mother was a radiant saint, she was able to use this healing power. Legend said that some very strong radiant saints were able to regrow someone's arm, as well as having the power to resurrect the dead. Inside Jian Chen's head, he had a secret thought. If he was able to understand and absorb the energy of the radiant saint, then he may be able to be like his mother and have the same amount of control a radiant saint had to heal wounds. As he had this thought, Jian Chen couldn't help but feel impatient and wanted to test it out. However, in the end, he still endured the temptation, since his current situation was not appropriate for experimenting. At that moment, the doors to the room opened wide. Jian Chen glanced at the people who walked in together. It was his father, Changyang Ba, and the Changyang clan's housekeeper, Chang Bai. "How is Carath? His injuries are not that severe, are they?" Changyang Ba asked with a voice of concern. "I thank my lord for his concern, but fourth sister has already healed him, so Carath is fine now." Yufeng Han's face showed a hint of a smile. Changyang Ba was showing some concern for his son, so she felt happy. "Then, everything is fine now." Changyang Ba nodded his head and looked at Jian Chen. "Changaer, how have these past few days been treating you?" Even when talking to Jian Chen, some concern was being shown as well. "I thank Father for his concerns. Your son has been doing very well." Jian Chen's voice was very even. Ever since the end of the Saint test, this was the first time Changyang Ba and Jian Chen had talked to each other. Hearing Jian Chen's voice sound so clipped with a sense of detachment, Changyang Ba couldn't help but sigh to himself secretly. Xiang'er, come accompany your father to the study room. Chang Yangba then turned around to exit from the room. In a flash, Jian Chen followed Chang Yangba and Chang Bai into the study room. Sitting down on a chair, Chang Yangba stared at Jian Chen for a moment before asking him, Xiang'er, I have heard that earlier this morning. You injured Chu Er of the kitchen servants this morning. That is true. Gian Chen had already realized that his true strength had already been revealed, so there was no point in trying to hide it. Chang Yangba's eyes had a cheerful expression as he laughed and said gently, Xiang'er, why don't you tell your father, can you already cultivate Saint Force? Jian Chen nodded his head faintly and answered as neutrally as before. Yes. He knew that there was no way he could conceal this fact, so he admitted it with straightforward answer. Although he already could guess that Jian Chen could cultivate Saint Force, hearing the confirmation from Jian Chen's own mouth made Chang Yangba feel even more emotional. Chang Bai, may I trouble you to test Xiang'er's Saint Force again? Chang Yangba was happy now, but he still spoke to Chang Bai politely, not at all having an attitude of the clan master asking for a housekeeper to do something. But Chang Bai only laughed and brought the hand with his space ring up, causing the Saint Stone to once more appear right in front of Jian Chen's eyes. Fourth Master, please put your hand on top of the stone, he said in a warm tone. The moment Jian Chen put his hand on the Saint Stone, Chang Bai also activated it. In that instant, Jian Chen once again felt that mysterious power being emitted from the Saint Stone, entering his body through his arms. Within him, the power roamed around in a circle, before finally returning back to the Saint Stone. At the same time, the only thing that could be seen was the entire Saint Stone suddenly emitting a faint red glow. Seeing the Saint Stone glow red, Chang Yangba's face showed an excited expression. Even Chang Bai now had a faint smile, and he looked at Jian Chen with a gratified look in his eyes. Clan leader, based on the strength of the glow, Fourth Master has already reached the 4th Saint Force layer, Chang Bai said with a faint smile. The 4th layer? The 4th layer? Chang Yangba gradually stood up from his chair, and in excitement, he wrung his hands together. Before this, he had already guessed such a result, but it had only been a guess. Now that he knew the actual situation, he felt a new feeling in his heart. Jian Chen had already reached the 4th Saint Force layer at the age of 7. Perhaps this level was not very outstanding compared to the entire Tianyuan continent, but within Gesun Kingdom, this was enough to qualify as a first-class genius. Moreover, his third brother, Chang Yang-ke, was 3 years older than Jian Chen, and yet his inner Saint Force power had just reached the 4th layer. Chang Bai once again placed the Saint Stone within his space ring. With a gratified look, he smiled. Fourth Master, you really have not disappointed me. Chang Yangba quickly calmed down and glanced at Jian Chen in a completely transformed light. His eyes were now filled with surprise, excitement, and gratitude. By the time Jian Chen left the study room, it was already almost noon. Right after Jian Chen left, Chang Yangba looked at Chang Bai, and with a slightly doubtful tone, he said, Chang Bai, since Xiang'er has Saint Force, then how come last time he was tested it wasn't detected? It had even scared me into thinking that Jian was a cripple that was not able to cultivate Saint Force. Chang Bai furrowed his brows, and after pondering for a bit, slowly said, I'm not completely sure either. Perhaps the last saint test malfunctioned somehow. However, this is no longer of any importance. Chang Yangba nodded. Currently, Xiang'er is only around 7 years old, and he has already reached the 4th Saint Force level. If this continues, I predict that the latest that Xiang'er will break through the 10th Saint Force level is by the age of 18, and condense his Saint Force into a Saint weapon. Moreover, Xiang'er has always been an outstanding genius since he was young, so I want to quickly send him to Carath Academy to study. What does Chang Bai think? Hearing these words, Chang Bai pondered for a bit, then replied, Carath Academy is the most famous academy in our Gesun Kingdom. However, the threshold to enter the academy is high. The person's strength must have reached the 8th Saint Force level, and his or her age cannot be over 18. If clan leader wants to quickly send 4th Master to Carath Academy, I'm afraid that is impossible in such a short period of time. Although the fourth master has already reached the fourth Saint Force level, the distance to the eighth Saint Force level will most likely take quite a long time. After all, the higher the Saint Force level, the harder it is to raise. I hope that Xiang'er can quickly train to the eighth Saint Force level within the next few years. Chang Yangba said softly. Chang Bai smiled. Don't worry, clan leader. I believe that fourth master will reach the eighth Saint Force layer sooner or later. The only issue is time. Since just now when I assessed fourth master, I discovered that fourth master's Saint Force wasn't far from reaching the fifth layer. Hearing these words, Chang Yangba was unable to contain his joy as he mumbled, I hope that Xiang'er will really surpass Chang Bai in the future and become the clan's pillar of support. Chang Bai stood on the side, smiling wordlessly. However, his eyes did not at all hide his expression of anticipation. After leaving the study room, Gian Chen immediately ran quickly back to his own room. He tightly closed his door, and he recalled the entire frightening scene of his fight with Chang Yang-ke. Although Gian Chen knew that during his fight with Dugu Q Bai in his previous world, he had made a breakthrough and entered the realm of the Sword God. But he didn't dare think that after his reincarnation, he would still be able to accomplish it. Just thinking about that remarkable ability sent Gian Chen into a spiral of joy and excitement. But when Jian Chen thought back to when the tree branch had mysteriously emitted sword chi, he started to feel some doubt. He no longer had the same strength he had from the previous world. So how was it possible for him to control an ordinary tree branch with the same sword chi? As he contemplated this, Jian Chen decided to give it a try once more. Scanning the room, his eyes noticed a nearby wooden clothes rack. Snapping off a 2-foot wooden strip, Jian Chen would use it as a makeshift sword. Holding the 2-foot wooden strip, Jian Chen slowly entered a state of tranquility. Deep in his mind, Jian Chen slowly began to convince himself that the wooden strip in his hand was not a wooden strip, but a sword instead. A sword for a god that could overcome anything. Slowly, as he harmonized with it, he could feel the grains in his hands and see them very clearly within his own head so well, he could even understand their internal compositions. Sucking a deep breath, he tried to quell the feelings of emotions within his heart. Taking hold of his emotions, the item in his hand flew into the air. Right as Jian Chen's mind had reached this state, he had already established a connection between the wooden strip and his spirit. As the wooden strip separated from his hand, it floated by itself in mid-air while still being under Jian Chen's control. It slowly inched forward before emitting a white ray of light, revealing the sharp sword chi he was familiar with. At this moment, Jian Chen had realized his soul had completely harmonized with the wooden strip, to the point that it had felt like his own arm that could easily be controlled with his will. At the same time, he had realized that the sword chi in the wooden strip had something to do with his soul. With that realization, Jian Chen could only see a bright ray of light coming from the hovering wooden strip and flew around his body with a speed so fast, even Jian Chen couldn't see it clearly. Jian Chen's heart pulsed quickly as his face revealed a look of extreme joy. He had not thought that the final moment of his life in the previous world would he be able to understand the sword soul. From that day on, the remarkable ability of the sword soul was not only Jian Chen's strongest attack, but also a skill that could save his life. Unknowingly, a few years passed. The current Jian Chen was already 15 years old. During these past few years, Jian Chen had rarely gone outside and spent every day in his room training the Azulet sword law. His strength had already been revealed, and he had even been recognized as a cultivating genius. Thus, his position in the Changyang household had changed. There was no longer a single person in the household that dared to look down on him. Moreover, Changyang Ba had been extremely caring to Jian Chen in pretty much every possible way. Among this, the happiest one was Bi Yuntian. Originally, her son that was deemed as a cripple unable to cultivate, but now he had transformed into a cultivating genius, especially since he had reached the fourth Saint Force layer at the age of 7. Anyone could imagine how happy Bi Yuntian was about her son being extraordinary. However, Jian Chen discovered that since he had revealed his true strength, his eldest aunt Ling Long and third aunt Yu Fenghan seemed to always look at him with an unfriendly expression. This situation was one that the Gian Chen, with memories of his previous life, was well aware of. Within the past few years, Jian Chen had already reached the 8th Saint Force layer. Moreover, this was only because Jian Chen had purposely slowed down his pace. That was because during the past few years, Jian Chen had used almost half the time to familiarize himself with the sword laws from his previous world. Otherwise, he most likely would have broken through the 8th level ages ago. Because of this, Jian Chen was currently not far from reaching the 9th layer already. Right now, within the Changyang household, Jian Chen's strength had already well surpassed his second sister Changyang Mingyue and his third brother Changyang Ke. Although Changyang Mingyue was over 3 years older than Jian Chen, her Saint Force had stopped at the 7th layer. As for Changyang Ke, he had never really had any talent for cultivating, and his current 17-year-old self had only achieved the 5th Saint Force layer after much difficulty. In the early morning, a large group of people gathered outside the Great Hall. Amongst this group were Jian Chen's parents, his 3 aunts, and even his third brother, Changyang Ke, and his second sister, Changyang Mingyue. Aside from them, a few of Changyang household's chief figures were also present. There was also a bird-type magical beast, about 3 meters large, that calmly sat on the ground, not too far from the crowd of people. Today was the day that Gian Chen would leave for Carath Academy to study. The minimum standard to enter Carath Academy was having achieved the 8th level. In addition, the person's age could not be over 18. Currently, Gian Chen met both of these standards. Moreover, today happened to also be the enrolling General Assembly for Carath Academy that only occurred once a year. Bi Yuntian's face was covered in tears as she looked at Jian Chen. With a loving gaze, she said, "Xiang'er, you have to study diligently at the academy. Try to stay out of trouble, understand?" Bi Yuntian spoke with a tone filled with deep concern. Jian Chen obediently nodded and said, "Don't worry, mother. I know what I should do." Changyang Ba walked up to Jian Chen and said, "Xiang'er, this space belt is something father prepared especially for you. Although it isn't anything priceless, and the amount of space inside isn't very large, it can still store some small things. If you break through the 10th level by the time you turn 18 and condense your Saint Force into a Saint weapon, then father will reward you with a space ring and a monster core." While speaking, a very exquisite belt had already appeared in his hands. Seeing the size of the belt, it was obvious that it had been specifically tailored for Jian Chen. Seeing Changyang Ba be so concerned about Jian Chen, Ling Long and Fenyan, who were standing nearby, couldn't help but show a trace of deep jealousy and dissatisfaction. However, currently, everyone's gazes were gathered on Jian Chen, and nobody had noticed them. Jian Chen accepted the belt and said with a strong self-confidence, "Father, I will definitely become a saint soon." Changyang Ba expressed a trace of a smile, and he looked at Jian Chen with a gaze full of gratification. "Fourth master, it's getting late. We should go on our way." At that moment, the housekeeper Chang Bai, that was standing on the side, spoke up. Jian Chen gave one final glance at his mother and then walked over to Chang Bai without once turning his back and said, "Chang Bai, let's leave." Chang Bai reached out and lifted Jian Chen onto the back of the flying magical beast. Afterwards, he jumped on as well, sitting next to Jian Chen. Faintly smiling at Jian Chen, he said, "Fourth master, sit tight, please." Afterwards, he only saw Chang Bai pat the magical beast's back. In an instant, the flying magical beast seemed to have received a command and stretched out its 10-meter-long wings to fly up. It directly rose up into the air and began to quickly fly off into the distance. Chapter 12. Big Brother Changyang Hu. Sitting on top of the flying magical beast, Jian Chen's face did not reveal any sort of emotion, even though they were flying at an extreme speed 1,000 feet high up into the air. Since the beast was flying at such high speeds, he could hear a ceaseless rumbling sound from the wind in his ears. Looking at Jian Chen's passive face, Chang Bai couldn't help but nod in approval. Most children generally paled in extreme fear after flying on top of a magical beast for the first time. Some children trembled in fear the whole time, while a smaller amount even wet themselves. But very few people had achieved the same tranquility as Jian Chen. Changbai thought back to when he had sent Changyang Hu to Carath Academy a few years back. After sitting on the flying beast, Changyang Hu's entire body had shivered from fright as he grabbed hold of the feathers on the beast's neck. Gian Chen stared at the flying magical beast below him and asked, "Changbai, what kind of beast is this, to be flying at such a fast speed?" "This is only natural," Changbai spoke in a majestic voice. "Fourth Master, you shouldn't underestimate this magical beast. This magical beast is called the Eagle Beast. It is a Class 4 magical beast, which is the equivalent of a great Saint Master. It can fly through the sky at extremely fast speeds, and even though it is barely Class 4, even someone of the same rank of Earth Saint Master would not be able to fight it when it is in the sky." "Then that would mean this Eagle Beast is very expensive," Gian Chen said. Changbai nodded. "That is natural as well. Flying magical beasts are very expensive, not only because they are hard to capture but hard to tame as well. Even though flying magical beasts are the fastest way of transportation, riding on one is very dangerous. In the case that a magical beast goes out of control, then the rider will be sent falling from thousands of meters in the air. Even with the power of an Earth Saint Master, surviving a fall like that would be unlikely, and even if you're lucky, you will still end up with a fatal injury. Even if it's a Class 1 or 2 flying magical beast, its price is still very expensive, especially if it has a berserk nature or won't submit to a human. Therefore, taming a flying magical beast is a very challenging task to accomplish." Jian Chen nodded his head before slowly becoming silent once more. Changbai looked at the silent Jian Chen and said, "Fourth Master, your older brother Changyang Hu is also at Carath Academy. It has been a few years already, so becoming a saint isn't too far away for him. If you ever come across a problem at the academy, don't be afraid to ask your older brother to help solve it." "Yes, I know," Jian Chen replied. But his mind felt complicated when he thought of his mysterious older brother. Jian Chen had never seen him before, and he didn't even know what his brother's personality was like. He was also very worried about if his older brother would be jealous about his innate skill at cultivating saint force, like third brother Changyang Ke was. Being jealous over something like this was not at all uncommon within a big clan. In the previous world, Jian Chen had met all sorts of family strife due to a power struggle between siblings during his time as a traveler. In Jian Chen's heart, he desperately hoped that such a situation would not happen to him. In his previous world, he was an orphan who had never experienced any sort of familial love. Since the heavens had blessed him with a family this time, he treasured it deeply. After the Eagle Beast flew for half the day at an extremely high speed, it finally arrived at Carath Academy, where under Changbai's control, it descended to a mere 100 meters above ground. Carath Academy was established within the plains, with a great wall 10 meters high surrounding it. The academy was extraordinarily big, and the lands it covered were vast as well. Even though Jian Chen was hovering 100 meters above ground, he still couldn't see the entire academy. Carath Academy was the most prestigious academy in the Gusun Kingdom, and today was its annual opening ceremony. For that reason, the front gates were extremely lively. There were many people there, as well as a few luxurious carriages that were parked not too far away. However, Jian Chen couldn't put names to the types of magical beasts that were pulling the carriages. Virtually every carriage had a few guards protecting them. In the skies, a few flying magical beasts approached them, descending down onto the academy courtyards. Each of them carried a small child. Changbai instructed the Eagle Beast to fly down towards the courtyards as well, landing them right next to a 100-meter-tall tower. He brought Jian Chen directly into the tower. Outside, there were still quite a few flying magical beasts resting there. Jian Chen and Changbai walked to the top of the tower to meet the headmaster of Carath Academy. The headmaster was not that much different in age than Changbai, and Jian Chen had a feeling that the two had some sort of familiarity between them. Because of this familiarity, Jian Chen could easily enter the academy without any problems. Under the instructions of the headmaster, Jian Chen's brother Changyang Hu had been called up to the top of the tower as well, allowing him to see the mysterious older brother he had never met before. Changyang Hu was already 18 years old, the same age as his second sister Changyang Mingyu, but Changyang Mingyue was younger by 3 months. Changyang-hu was a fairly sturdy teenager who was taller than Jian Chen, and he wore the academy uniform. He had already been enrolled in the academy for over 2 years, and his Saint Force had also reached the peak of the 10th layer. However, he had not yet condensed it into a saint weapon. The distance between the peak of the 10th layer and sainthood was not big at all, but the moment in between was very important, as condensing the Saint Force into a saint weapon was a very challenging task. On the Tianyuan continent, many people weren't capable of forming a saint weapon since birth, because they lacked the aptitude, as well as the innate skill. According to the headmaster, Changyang-hu had already reached the peak of the 10th layer a year ago, and had already tried to form a saint weapon 3 times, but only met with failure each time. However, seeing an 18-year-old that could form a saint weapon by the age of 18 was rare to see on the Tianyuan continent. The average age was around 20 years before a saint weapon could be formed, but most of them were geniuses. Of course, the average person could make a saint weapon at that age as well, but most of them would not be able to walk down the path of martial arts for long. Because the spiritual qi of the Tianyuan continent was abundant, the average lifespan of a person was around 200 years. For a person to form a saint weapon at the age of 20, that could be considered decent. Chang Bai pointed at Changyang-hu and said to Gian Chen, "Fourth master, that person is your brother Changyang-hu." Looking over at him, he cried, "Eldest master, this is your younger brother Changyang-xiang-tian." "Big brother!" Jian Chen looked at Changyang-hu with a smile as he shouted out a greeting. In his eyes, he had felt that Changyang-hu looked to be a strong yet straightforward person, but his heart was not in complete agreement. Hearing Jian Chen's shout, Changyang-hu scratched at his cheek with a laugh. "Fourth brother, feel free to call on me any time. If you are bullied in the future, then look for me straight away, and I'll smash them to pieces." Laughing at his brother's speech, Jian Chen responded, "Then I'll be relying on you, big brother." With this first impression, Jian Chen had thought that Changyang-hu was pretty nice, and so all worries he had about his big brother began to disappear like smoke. Changyang-hu shook his head and laughed once more. "It'll be no problem, not a problem at all. No matter what you say, I am still your older brother, so protecting the fourth brother is an absolute must." After this, Changyang-hu suddenly froze, before looking around, his eyes revealing some doubts. "Chang Bai, where are second sister and third brother?" he asked. "Eldest master, the second lady and third master have not yet reached the requirements to enter the academy, so it is only the fourth master that was able to join." Chang Bai answered serenely. "Oh." Hearing that, Changyang-hu let loose a disappointed look and began to mutter, "How did they not reach the requirement of reaching the 8th layer? This is silly. Fourth brother is more formidable, since he reached the 8th layer so quickly. He's even more amazing than me, his older brother. Eldest master, please escort the fourth master down. From today on, you need to properly look after your younger brother. I still have some business to settle with the headmaster," Chang Bai said. Changyang-hu nodded his head firmly and pounded his chest with his fist. "Chang Bai, don't worry. I definitely won't allow anyone in the school to bully fourth brother." Afterwards, Jian Chen received the school medal and left with his older brother. After exiting the tower, Jian Chen looked at the school medal in his hands. Aside from it being proof of him being a student, it also contained his dorm address. Although Jian Chen was not familiar with the layout of the academy, but because Changyang-hu was there to lead the way, they both ended up at their destination sooner than he had expected. The dormitories of the academy were built using a very durable type of stone and were split into 2 different areas. One area was for the commoners to live in, and the other side was for people like Gian Chen, who had a prestigious clan backing them up. The differences between the two were like comparing the heavens to the earth. Carath Academy was Gasun Kingdom's most prestigious academy, so it naturally had to have a unique characteristic. Carath Academy had a very strict rule. One must reach the 8th layer of Saint Force before they reach the age of 18 in order to fulfill the requirement. If a student does not reach this level, then even if they are from an extremely prestigious and rich family, they will not be able to enroll in the academy. Because the tuition costs were very low, even the commoners were able to enroll with ease. Some of the students that successfully enrolled came from impoverished families, but Carath Academy had even waived the fee for many. For that reason, many students were of a commoner's background, and had a poor innate skill for cultivation. At Carath Academy, there was also another iron-set rule that an aristocrat's follower could not casually bully commoner students. Otherwise, no matter how powerful your family background was, you would still suffer from a serious punishment. If the situation was serious enough, then you might even be expelled. Although this would offend some major families, Carath Academies had the backing of the Gisun kingdom. Moreover, the headmaster was one of the 6 major elites in Gisun Empire, so no major family dared to speak up against this iron-set rule. Gian Chen's dorm room was around 10 square meters, and the room's decor was extremely simple. Aside from a bed and a chair, there wasn't anything else present. However, the entire room had been tidied so that it was extremely clean and organized, and it was completely spotless. "Fourth brother, this is your room. Remember the location well, and be careful to not go the wrong way." Chang Yang-hu laughed. Jian Chen nodded, and after throwing down some of the clothes he had brought with him, he was pulled away by his older brother to wander around the school grounds. Chang Yang-hu claimed that it was so that Gian Chen could familiarize himself with his new surroundings. For the entire afternoon, Gian Chen was dragged around by Chang Yang-hu to wander aimlessly around the school. Suddenly, Chang Yang-hu opened his mouth to say, "Fourth brother, tomorrow is the annual new student competition. There are plenty of rewards, and the first newcomer king can even win a rank 3 magic stone. The person in second place can win a rank 2 magic stone, and the person in third place can win a rank 1 magic stone. You have to try your best and earn first place."